Hello viewers, myself Dr. J. Abdul Bari, working as Associate Professor in the Department of Civil Engineering of K.S.Rangasamy College of Technology. In this video, we are going to look after friction and its types under the topic Applied Mechanics. The overview which we are going to look after in this content are definitions of frictions, forces of frictions, factors affecting the frictions, types of frictions and some examples of frictions, and other definitions like limiting frictional force, normal forces and coefficient of frictions. First, we will look into what is friction. Friction is nothing but a force that resists the motion between two surfaces in contact. Actually, the frictions we are coming across in everyday lives, just like walking or driving the operations of machines or driving the cars. Friction is simply the force that opposes the motions, and it involves the objects that are in contact with each other. And this is a force that keeps an object from sliding down an inclined plane. The opposing force, which acts in the opposite direction of the movement of the upper body, is called as frictional force, or also called as simply frictions. And the forces of friction is nothing but the force which opposes the motion of an object over the surface. And the force of friction, it acts between your object as well as the surface. For example, consider a ball which is rolling on the ground and it gradually slows down and comes to rest due to the force of friction between the ball as well as the ground. And similarly, if you are looking into the cycle, if you are stopped pedaling the cycle, it gradually slows down and comes to stop due to the forces of friction between the wheel as well as the road. So the object as well as the surface are having contact with each other, and we are developing the frictional forces. And the factors which affecting frictions are the nature of the surface in contacts with each other, as well as the how all the surfaces are pressed together. For example, if you are considering the nature of surface in contact, that is the smoothness of the surfaces, and if the surface is smooth, the friction will be less, and if the surface is rough, the friction will be more. Similarly, if you are looking into the factors just like pressing together the surface, if you are going to press hard on the surface, the friction will be more, or if the surface is not pressed harder, the friction will be less. And the causes of frictions is nothing but due to your interlocking of irregularities between two surfaces which are in contact with each other. For example, the smooth surfaces have minute irregularities between the two surfaces, whereas the rough surfaces have larger irregularities between two surfaces. Hence, friction is more in case of rough surfaces. So, the following are the types of the friction, that is static friction, sliding friction and rolling friction. So, static friction is the force exerted on the object at rest is called as static friction. You can see in this diagram, a man is pushing the body, so the man is a force which is going to push a body on the which is at rest. And second diagram, you can able to see that the friction which is exerted when the object slides over the surface is known as sliding friction. And the last one is the friction exerted on the object which rolls over the surface is rolling frictions. Simply, the friction is classified as static friction as well as the dynamic frictions. When the body is in rest condition, the friction force exerted by the body is called as static friction, and when the body is in moving conditions, then the friction force exerted by the body is called as dynamic frictions. The dynamic frictions is classified further as sliding friction and rolling friction, which we have already seen. Some of the examples of frictions in everyday lives is walking, driving, writing. These are all some of the examples. If your friction between your shoes as well as the ground allows us to walk without slipping, and in case of driving, the friction between the tires and the roads enables the car to move and brake effectively. Similarly, for writing, the friction between the pencil and the paper allows us to leave a mark on the surface. And some other examples are frictions between hand and tumbler to hold a tumbler. Similarly, the frictions in the bricks in the construction buildings. So these are all the examples which are coming across in the everyday lives. Then, limiting frictional force. The maximum value of the friction force at which the body resting on another body starts to slide is called as limiting frictional force. For example, if you are considering the limiting frictional force is F and the applied frictional force is P, if F is greater than P, there will not be any motions between the two bodies. If F is equal to P, motion will be there between your two bodies. Coming across to the normal frictions, it is nothing but a net force comprising of two parallel surfaces together, and in the directions of the reaction force will be perpendicular to the surface on which it acts. Coefficient of friction is just a ratio of the force between the surface that gets transformed into the frictions. Simply, coefficient of friction can be said as the ratio of limiting friction to the normal reaction, and it is denoted by the letter mu. So mu equal to F divided by Fn, where F is nothing but the limiting friction and Fn is nothing but the normal reactions. So coefficient of frictions can be obtained for the static frictions as well as the kinetic frictions, where mu s is the coefficient of static friction and mu k is the coefficient of the kinetic frictions. And we can able to calculate the frictional force as force between the surface multiplied by the coefficient of frictions. With the help of this formula, we can able to calculate the frictional force.